Let's be real as fuck about life, real estate, and entrepreneurship. Hi, I'm Julie Chin. You can call me Jules. The Real as Fuck brand is all about providing tools and resources to help new and struggling agents succeed. I share my personal experience not only as a new real estate agent, but also how I overcame the odds starting out as a single mom with a mountain of debt and a ton of self-doubt. Welcome to the Real as Fuck podcast. I'm your host, Julie Chin, and today I have Karna Live Now with me. Super excited. She is a social media marketing strategist. Is that sort of accurate?
Great question, Julie. That's one component of what I do. I'm technically an alignment marketing strategist. So my marketing strategies, they kind of span everything marketing related. So you can imagine into creating funnels. I call them marketing ecosystems. I kind of have a spin on all these typical marketing terms because I think they're a little stale and outdated. So I do everything that goes into email marketing, social media, ads, stuff like that.
Oh, wow. Well, I apologize for getting that wrong. I was wondering what the alignment meant, so thank you for clarifying. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about you and what you do?
Absolutely. So you already heard, my name is Karna, and as I'm talking, you might hear a little bit of an accent. Typically, people don't know how to really place it, but I was born in Sweden, and I lived there until my early 20s when I came to the United States to become a health coach. Originally, I was really interested in this kind of alternative holistic health, and I wanted to be where the cutting edge information was. I've always been very non-complacent. I'm always going into the fringes and taking complex things and simplifying them and making sense. I'm like a super nerd. You can't really tell, I put on my fashion and lipstick, but then I'm nerding out at home, So I nerded out on health. And then through that, I met my husband in my school there. So I ended up moving to the States and began my career. And I was kind of working as the right-hand woman of many different organizations in the start of my career. And I really quickly realized this marketing thing, it's really difficult for people. And as I was kind of building my coaching business on the side, when I was working for the organizations, helping them, I really understood the nature of the soulpreneur or someone who's working. They're trying to take what they have inside, what I call their soul gifts, and they're trying to give that to the world. But then it's really challenging. So first I worked with organization within them and kind of did everything. I was super Jill of all trades, wearing all the freaking hats. And then I ended up forming a small marketing agency called Fem & Co. So we were basically focused on what we call the 13 feminine principles of business. So I did that for 2.5 years. And in the last few years, I've been on my own because I really, again, I have this little rebellious streak. So I wanted to figure out, most people that come to me, they've either been burnt from marketing, they've hired someone expensive and they didn't really get the results, or they feel like the things that they're learning doesn't feel good to them and they get stuck and they feel frustrated with it. So that's kind of where I come in. I kind of simplify things for people, organize it, make it fun. My tagline now of my social media is make marketing fun again, because
Love that. You're a counselor.
Yeah. Well, my coaching background, I really wanted to get into, my first love was psychology. So yeah, I really love understanding humans and what makes human relate. And so what I ended up calling my expertise was alignment marketing, because how I talk about it, Julie, I don't know if this is going to resonate with you, but it's I believe in a higher power. I have a spiritual practice.
Absolutely.
And, however you define that, it doesn't have to be any specific, but you believe in there's something bigger. And so to be in alignment with that, what you believe that is, and that you're really operating from what you think that higher power, this is what they would want you to do, basically. Alignment with that, alignment with the divine, alignment with yourself and your values and who you truly are, your authentic self. Alignment with the other. So being in right relationship with other people, working in integrity, doing things with a lot of maturity, and just being the antidote of kind of the fast food culture that we have. And, I'm speaking largely this get all the followers and do all the things. I'm going back to being more in a right relationship, and then with the planet as well. So how is the stuff that you're doing in the world, is it really impacting world we live in a positive direction for future generations. So that's what alignment marketing is. And that's what I do.
That's a really unique approach to a subject matter that is just so mainstream and defined so specifically. So this is really cool.
I'm glad you think so. I think it's the future, honestly. So how I like to frame it is like I call the old the old marketing styles. I call it a little bit bro marketing. There's trends like
right.
there's a white guy who sits there and yells at you from a stage of what you need to do, and you need to be in the hustle culture, and you need to do this and do that, and it's kind of like exhausting. And I think maybe that worked before the pandemic and when people didn't have small kids. I mean, I think it really always was kind of a little predatory in a certain way, but I think at this point, post pandemic, where we're kind of tired and we're kind of looking at like, what do I want from life? We kind of had a collective wake up call and we're like, I want to work in a way that feels like super in integrity with me. And then that makes the old school marketing kind of really feel uncomfortable. It's like putting on a tight, like polyester costume or suit. You're like, oh, this is really uncomfortable. And I want to liberate people with that and say, you don't have to do that. There's other ways to do it, marketing.
So how does that specifically translate over?
Great question. So how it specifically translates over is that I help people, and people can do this on their own. It's truly about getting super clear on who you are, what you believe in, and who you want to serve. So I think from a realtor perspective, I think what I've been teaching a lot of realtors lately about Instagram marketing particularly. And what I keep coming back to is the relationship. And so if we focus on thinking, first of all, it's more of a long-term strategy then. And I think that really goes well with being a realtor in general. It's like, you're not doing things for the quick win. You're really doing things to build a relationship that would stand the test of time. And you're really focusing. I think what it really speaks to is like, can you really tune into what makes you different as a realtor? Can you really tune into what sets you apart? Don't look at everyone else, what everyone else is doing. Really look at what makes you unique. And I have a really funny example. So one of the realtors that she has 2 cows. Okay.
Okay.
Adorable.
I wasn't expecting that, but go ahead.
I know. I'm like throwing you. We're going out here on in a left field. A little curveball for you. There was a realtor. She's like, I have these 2 cows. Can I post about them? And I'm like, listen, this is gold for Instagram. She showed me the pictures and they're adorable. They have like these fluffy heads and they would like, here's a picture of the cows.
Adorable and cow in the same sentence. Did we just say that?
Yes, it's true. I didn't know that was true. It felt like they were more like, looked like big, they kind of had the energy of like 2 like happy dogs. Like they were like standing by her window trying to get snacks. Like and I was just like, this is incredible. And I was like, why couldn't you? Another person was like, can I put picture? I love cooking. Like I love recipes. I'm like, you can be the recipe realtor. What about you? Like, don't be a cookie cutter. It's about stepping out of the cookie cutter and really allowing your personality and your values and what makes you unique to stand apart. And how do you do that? It's really about getting curious about yourself and being brave, because it's about being seen and being visible, which is super scary. Like, it's kind of nice. Yeah, it's kind of nice
to go. I've been doing that with Real AF this whole time, like so out of the comfort zone.
I see you, girl. I saw that and I was like, dang. And that was beautiful to me, because it's like, that speaks to that really sets you apart, and that speaks to who you are as a person. You're like, no, we're not. So really what I teach would be really in alignment with you, because it's all about really getting real with yourself. And so then that's like the core of it, I would say, about the relationship component and really allowing yourself to be unique and be seen. Like, you need to do work on your visibility, like be seen and heard and as yourself, and take pride in it and get excited about sharing more of who you are. That's really a big hurdle that people come up against, because they feel scared of doing that.
It's really true. And part of it is I've had a couple of conversations on some other podcasts with Brooke and Tim Lindsay when they were on the podcast earlier this year. People pass the real estate exam, and then I think the way Brooke put it is that agents start vomiting real estate all over their personal sphere instead of just remaining human and connecting, whether it's over your kids or the ball game or whatever the hobbies are, just their authentic self. They just all of a sudden put this hat on and everything's real estate. And I think another way to describe it is some are then talking at people, right?
Right.
Instead of having mutual conversations where you're actually present and listening and hearing. Maybe they're over there. Well, shoot, how do I bring up real estate? I really want their listing. I think I heard they're going to sell. There's all this
Right.
dialogue going on instead of being present and talking about something else. You don't have to shove real estate at everybody.
Super good point. And I think what you're talking about, it also touches upon another thing that I'm big on, which is trusting the process and trusting that when you continuously show up, and if you do it the right way, it will pay off in the long run. And actually, my realtor, Leanne, in Colorado, she's a perfect example of this. She really taught me a lot about marketing because she was incredible at this. The community events that she would put on, I didn't know this when I first hired her as my realtor. She was an amazing realtor. But once I started getting into the community, I saw like on every single, like when I would go to a restaurant, the first person who had left a 5-star review was Leanne. When I would go over here, like she was just an integral part. She was so deeply involved with the community that business would come to her. People knew what she did. She would say it, but that was about it. Like, I'm a realtor. That's it. And then she did all this other cool stuff. And she would trust that when they were ready, they were like, well, she's my go-to. And then people would naturally be gravitating toward her. And actually, she would get more business because she wasn't doing that, shoving it down the throat. She was just building relationships. And that really stuck with me. And we had a long friendship. Unfortunately, she passed away. And she was like a huge impact on my life and how she lived and even how she died. It was like I met her as my realtor, Julie.
Wow.
Didn't know her before that. And I was I was there with her a week before she passed away. And she is one of the most influential people in my life. So that's like the power that if you focus on the relationship, yes, I'm really glad that she like got me a really good deal. But she did that. Like she was, she was a good realtor. She did everything. And she had a huge heart. And that's really what will stay with me. And I think we be digging into our humanity more. And, because who likes to be marketed to? Who likes to be sold to?
No one.
Nobody. But it's kind of what we're told. And it's a kind of a safety. It's kind of a little bit of like a safety blanket because it's like, well, I'm going to do someone else's 5-step process. And then but why is it not working for me?
Right.
We want other people's thing because then we don't have to really do the inner work required to really like go out there and build a business that is like a long-term legacy that I believe that we all are capable of, but not necessarily, I don't think especially now, Julie, I don't know how much you've talked about in this podcast about AI and like Chat GPT or anything like that.
Not much, just a little bit with Brooke the Nerd, who is a technology trainer with KW New England.
Cool. Yeah, so I'm just going to touch upon this. This is a whole rabbit hole in and of itself, But with the advent of AI, you really can use these technologies to really create a ton of content. So some people, even I believe in the realtor industry, will be able to use this. And I think there's a way to use it ethically and effectively to actually enhance your business. And we'll talk about that. But a lot of people just use it as create me this many posts, and they will just be spewing out all this realtor, I'm doing air quotes, you can see that, but realtor tips, realtor tips, and they will come out. But ultimately, I'm just of this kind of slow and steady wins the race, like dig into your humanity. And that's how you're going to ultimately stand out in the competition and like really owning your voice. And I think entrepreneurship and being a realtor, yes, it can pay the bills and it can be a lucrative career, but it can also be a way to like realize who you are and like being more of the most of yourself that you're meant to be. I think you're going to hear me. You're like, I'm constantly banging this drum. I'm like, there's a bigger purpose. But I think we shouldn't be too narrow in the way we approach these things. It's like, it's an ability to also be way more fulfilled in your career when you market from this place.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just real estate. It's any business.
Yes.
Yeah. And I really think that that's a benefit of the pandemic is that people are, not everyone, a lot of people are more in touch with themselves, their family, what's really important.
Hmm.
And, so many people moved out of the city or started fulfilling dreams. I can't tell you how many families I had the honor of helping who were like, hey, we have always thought about this and we're just making it happen now. And,
Yeah.
headed to the mountains or lake or, whatever. There were a lot of beautiful things, at least to me anyway, during the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is where we have the choice of becoming like the narrator of our story, right? So there were a lot of things that were extremely painful. And
Hmm.
I'm not a believer in like everything happens for a reason. I think that's kind of hard to hear sometimes. I think it's more like I'm more in the Viktor Frankl camp over like we create the meaning. We have the power to reframe and rewrite stories. And that's a good way to do it. And like really look and like how did this benefit us? And so it's a powerful way to be.
Yeah, absolutely. How would you suggest the new or struggling agent take this heartfelt or soulful approach? Life is one thing, life and business, they meld together. I mean, you can't really separate them, but
Mhm.
the outcome is different. So how is that person going to meld this thought into, say, their business campaign?
Okay.
Have you seen a lot of people have difficulty with that you've been working with? How do you
Well,
teach them?
uh, can we talk specifically about like social media right now?
Mhm.
Yeah. So if we're talking from a social media, so you're asking me like if you're newly out there and if you've become a realtor, how do you take this what I'm teaching and like what's the difficulty
Apply it.
in
Yep.
applying it? Okay.
Yep, absolutely.
So yeah, I
I
think it would.
sometimes have trouble with my words, which I know is hysterical being on a podcast, but real as fuck. Sometimes I
There you
screw
go.
up.
We all do.
You got it
Um,
though. You
yes,
sifted through all that.
yeah, but I think it's an excellent question because it kind of goes back to like why this is marketing is a struggle for like most people. There are certain few people that are like naturally good at this, and that's great. Bless them. But usually not the people I work with, or I work with them down the line and refine their processes. But I think something I want to really emphasize is that you want to set yourself up with a good foundation. So doing a little bit of work up front and making yourself look good and like really putting some thought into who you're gonna be out there, and with working with what I call it's what's called an MVP approach. So that's not most valuable player, but you are your most valuable player in your own life, obviously. But it's minimum viable product. So this is a concept from like startup culture, Silicon Valley type things, where you're instead of like spending hours and years on a product and then you put it out and then you find out actually this wasn't the right thing or people don't respond to this, you create something simple and like a prototype and you test it and you get feedback from the world. So
Mhm.
how I like to approach this, it's like sit down and I don't know if they're going to be like part of an agency. There's going to be different types of realtors, right? Some
Right,
will be
right.
more independently operating, some will be. So sometimes you get like a brand, you get the colors, you get compliance, you have to like adhere to certain parameters based on what kind of realtor organization you're part of. So we have to take that into consideration. So it's going to be a little bit different for everyone.
Mhm.
But I do think that there's a way that you can think of it like what kind of language, like sit down with a piece of paper and you're like, who am I? Like, what do I say? What's unique about me? And this is where it's going to be hard because sometimes people have a hard time really like looking at themselves and seeing what's good about them. And especially if you're new, you're like, oh, other people have more
Mhm.
experience. But listen, I truly believe that there's always going to be competition for any business, but there are there are ways where people want to work with you specifically because of who you are, and there are your ideal clients are the people that are kind of destined to work with you. I don't know how to put it, but it's like your people are out there, but you need to let them find you. You need to be like a lighthouse, and you need to stand for something. So what I mean by that, for example, on social media, take some time to just be a little bit consistent. Like pick a color scheme. Like I use this color. I use this font. You're not going to be Coca-Cola. You're not a brand so that you always have to adhere to very strict guidelines. But by creating something that people can easily identify, like, oh, I'm interacting with Julie. Like when I see the Real as Fuck logo, or like seeing that, I'm like instantly if you have a way to talk and if you have a way to express yourself in certain colors and certain fonts, people are going to be trained on that. And they're going to be like, oh, I can see another, even if they didn't engage with you. I really want to emphasize this, which is you're not on social media to build a massive following. You are not an influencer.
Darn.
I know. Boo. Like,
you just burst my balloon. No,
I know. Kidding. All the kids want to be YouTube, stars and influencers, right?
Yeah, no.
But most people don't really want. They right. We're stepping away from that influencer culture, and we're really not about. So it's almost like you can think of your social media a little bit like a mini website. Like, let's say your Instagram account. Just make sure that things are cohesive and consistent across all channels. So if you're posting something, make sure you're using the right kind of same tone of voice, the same colors, the same fonts. It adds up because you know what? It adds trust. And people, even they're not engaging with you, and this is kind of where I was getting at, you want to optimize for, like, I call them lurkers. So there's always going to be people, and I'm one of them, by the way. I scroll all around and I don't have time to engage and talk to everybody. I just look, I'm like, that's what they're up to. That's what they're doing. A lot of people are like this. So even if you're not, maybe you only got 2 likes and you're feeling discouraged because you spend time on that, don't worry about that. It's better to be going MVP, minimum viable product, kind of get out there, start getting consistent, and just show up consistently. And again, I would rather have you post on social media once a week and say, okay, I post once on Wednesdays, I post, versus I post Monday through Friday for 2 weeks, and then I disappear for 2 months, and then I come back. This is like people's biggest problem, and I understand it. I have a habit coach certification. My brother's in behavioral design, and I'm really good at designing habits. It's how I built my life to be pretty dang awesome, if I didn't say so myself. It took a long time. But I want people to know that, for example, there are certain simple ways that you can address inconsistency, especially like if you're a busy parent or whatever it is. You kind of want to optimize for your worst week, like when the kids are sick or there's listings come, you're writing all these contracts and you're doing all this stuff, hopefully, right? But you're really busy, but you're still committing. You're like, I have committed, and you need to have an activator for your behavior. So you put it on your calendar, you set a timer. When you're building this habit of posting every Wednesday, let's call it, you might put a sticky note on your computer that says, I post on social media every Wednesday. And that's what you do. And listen, if you did that for 1 year, you are in the long game. Like, when it comes to realtors, someone might meet you today and you make a relationship with them, and then 2 years down the line, that's when they're buying their house, right? It's not about a quick fix, quick little hit. It's about long term. So if you did it every Wednesday and you did high quality, on brand, as you define that, every Wednesday, in 1 year, you would have 52 really amazing posts. And that lives forever. Like, when people go there to your, like, let's say someone now finds you, they have either, they typed in your name because someone recommended you, and they just want to look you up on Instagram, right? So they're they're like scrolling, imagine yourself in the grocery store with you're waiting in line, and you're like, let me look this person up here. You're like kind of waiting, and you're just kind of looking at it, and you type in their name, you go to their feed, and you see all these posts, and you're like, dang, you're not going to look, well, how often are they posting?
It's true.
And
yeah,
it's going to be a glance. So give yourself some grace, because we tend to be very all or nothing when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm saying I'd rather, and what ends up happening is once you get in the habit of it, and once you get, then some weeks you get a bout of inspiration on Friday, and you post that day, and it was something really cool because you were really inspired that day. But by committing to a minimum amount of posting, you're at least getting consistency, and you're getting a habit, and it gets easier and easier over time. And I really hope that's helpful, but I know it's hard to do, so I have a lot of grace for people as well.
Well, I think it is super helpful, and it's about being intentional.
Yes.
And then the results of that aesthetic feed will pay off if you're intentional. I know for my team, my real estate team is called Rockstar Lux, and I'm a little OCD, and I need the colors a certain way. And if that's not fitting in my vision, I just don't want it posted. And if it's something that really needs to be posted, I ask my assistant to make a cover page for it that's in my colors. I know I'm a pain in the ass, but I just want to be able to go to our feed and scroll and be like, oh, okay. And in the beginning, it wasn't like that. So it's evolved, but I love to be able to see how it's progressed and evolved
Mm.
over time.
Yeah, so you're a perfect example of this. And again, you didn't let it stop you. You were posting when it wasn't perfect also, which is why we have to give ourselves permission to start somewhere. Even if there's a really cool marketing lady. Her name is Simone Soul Grace, and she has a challenge called the Garbage Post Challenge. So that's when she has people, there's a podcast about this episode. It's really powerful. And she has people in 30 days post 100 pieces of content just to get over this barrier. Not suggesting you have to do that, but it's just like it's almost like we only get momentum by getting started and kind of committing, and then motivation comes from taking action. So even if we're feeling unmotivated, even doing something small can really like help us move forward and start getting into that momentum.
For sure. I never thought about this. So there is a challenge for people just in posting in general?
Yeah, she is a marketing expert. So she has a podcast with hundreds of episodes, and one of them is this. And she even has a hashtag associated with it. And it's just like where this is one way that she's serving her community to get over this barrier of like perfectionism. So everyone has their own challenges, but usually I think the biggest challenges people have is they don't know what to post. It's hard for it to get consistent, and they're scared of that their posting is not good enough. Perfectionism. So that's usually what comes up the most. Those three things.
Yeah, that makes sense. We had Andrea on a podcast. She's from Canada, and that's one of her things is she just says, start videoing, just do it.
Yes.
We have all these narratives in our head that and limiting beliefs that get in our way.
Mm-hmm.
I know
Absolutely.
for me, I didn't want to be on this side of the camera, and it never occurred to me that I would be over on this side. I just wanted to write my thoughts down of the steps when someone passes the real estate exam and they're looking for a brokerage to join or trying to figure out how to do the job. I just wanted to get those words down and out and in front of people so that could be of help. At no point did it occur to me I'd be on this side of a camera and also feel so vulnerable. When the book published, I kind of lost my breath a little bit because I thought, oh, wow, this is now out and in front of everyone. And what if it's terrible? What if people are talking behind my back? Whatever. I just had so many thoughts. But my belief in the need for this material getting in the hands of new agents was more important to me.
Right. Your
So,
why was stronger. Like
yeah,
Simon
absolutely.
Sinek talks about this in his book, Start With Why. It's like your why, like it's so important. You want to help so badly. It's like, okay, I'm so connected. And it could be for a new realtor. It's like, I'm so like connected to the fact that I want to build this family that I'm building, or like this, I want us to have this freedom on these experiences. So just really tapping into the possibility, and don't let, the fear be bigger than your desire for this life that you're building. And that's where we got to really dig into what is our why? What is that thing that what's our reason for doing this? And just making sure that we get in touch with that all the time.
Absolutely.
And remember to go back to that.
Yeah, personally and professionally.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So I wanted to give a very specific tip about Instagram, if that's okay.
Excellent. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because I'm talking about all these ideas and how to do things. But I want to tell people this is something that I think if people knew, this would really be a powerful way that you could be found by new people. And that's on Instagram. There's only two places that have what's called SEO, search engine optimization. So what that means is there's only two places where people, if they go to there's like a little magnifying glass on Instagram, and you you can touch it. Like, let's say if you were a person looking for a realtor in a specific area, and let's say it was in a specific town they wanted to live, and they would put in realtor Exeter, for example, or realtor Hampton or whatever. Then if you didn't have these keywords that they're searching, realtor Hampton, New NH, most likely they will put all those things in the search.
Right.
If you don't have those keywords in these two places that I'm about to mention, you won't show up in the search. And this is where people think, I'm putting these keywords in the bio. That's a little description right under your photo where you're like kind of writing about yourself, like, hey, I'm a realtor with this much experience. I work in this area. It won't pull from there. The only two places that have SEO is in your @ handle, like the thing that has an @ sign and then the name. So what's your @ name, Julie?
Real AF program.
Okay. So, that's that. So then right underneath there's your name field, like where people would put in, what's your last name, Julie? So it would be Julie
Chin.
Julie Chin. Okay. So most people, they would have really.
I'm grabbing my phone, so you just hang on. I'm like, wait, I'm getting this in front of me.
You're good doing this in real time. Okay.
I'm sure our listeners are too.
Yeah, right. So I'm really hoping you're looking at your phone and you're looking at that @ sign. So like what most people do, most people do is they put @ so they put something like Seacoast Realtor, and then they put in the name field, they put their name, like Julie Chin, or in my case, Karna Live Now. And so what you and I would show up for, I would only show up if someone knew me and put in my name. And you would only show up for if someone knew your name or Real AF program. If they knew that about you, you would show up for those two keywords. Okay. So what I always recommend people doing is really getting clear on what keyword do they want to show up for specifically. And this means, and I'm talking specific is better, even though you're serving the entire Seacoast, maybe there's one town or some location that you are like really do most of your business in and where you would most like to work. That's like, this is my, I'm really good at like when I get properties here that is good for my bottom line. I have a lot of history here. I'm good at this. So let's say name a town that would be, Julie.
I handle so many towns, but
pick one. Like if you were
North
a new person.
Conway.
Okay, so you could have Julie Chin. So your handle will be Real AF program @ Real AF program. Then you have Julie Chin, and you would have like maybe a little house icon or like a divider, and then it would say Realtor North Conway NH right there. Because if someone then would, any of those keywords is what you're going to show up for when people are searching for you. Did that make sense? What I just explained?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to replay this later and go back, and I'll adjust my my real estate teams page as well as Real AF program.
Amazing.
That'll be interesting.
And again, I want to say something real quick about the fact that people are really scared to put something specific because they're like, I don't want to exclude anyone. It's not about excluding. You can still serve the entire Seacoast. You can serve 50 states, but by not doing that, you're losing out on all the people searching in that area for that specific keyword. So if you're really intentional and you really like think it through and like really just think through what would people put in here if they're sitting there looking for someone, what are they putting in here and what do I want to show up for? And that's what I really want to hit home is like, if you did only that, imagine now, I just did it for a local business in Dover, New Hampshire, and their fitness studio I work with, and they weren't coming up for Fitness Studio Dover because they had their name was The Sweet Studios with their @ handle, and then their name in their name field was The Sweet Studios. So they were only showing up for people searching for their actual business name. So you would actually have to know about them to find them. So now we have optimized it so they have their name of the studio, and then they have a little divider, and then it says Fitness Studio Dover NH. So now they're going to show up for fitness studio. So these keywords are interchangeably. I know. Isn't that fascinating? So you can see how important this would be for a realtor.
Right. So I'm looking not at my real estate page, but for this company, which encompasses my book, the podcast, and the membership group, and the toolkit and whatnot. So interesting. And I'm not good. Well, technology, all this type of stuff is just not I'd rather be out showing homes or
That makes a lot
helping
of
new
sense. That's why we have a
agents.
team.
Yeah. I'd definitely rather be working in a mentoring group, actually. So on my Instagram, perfect
Hmm.
example. So the top says Real AF Program. And then underneath the thumbnail picture, I guess you call
Hmm.
it,
Yeah.
is my name
Hmm.
with the divider. And
Yeah.
then it just says founder.
Exactly.
Right. So
Exactly.
so walk me through that.
Okay, great. So this is like
It's
gold.
perfect example.
Yes, it's perfect example. This is what everyone does. They just put realtor there, right? And it's so incredible. So for you, I would be like, I'm exploring something where this is like an umbrella that does what do you actually do? Like, do you serve realtors only? So this is like tools for realtors specifically?
So the book specifically in the mentorship group is geared towards new and struggling real estate agents. So
Okay.
with the book, I actually walk them through the entire process. There's several agents currently in
Mm,
real estate school right now reading my book, and it's
incredible.
helping get them ready for what's next. Because, for
Okay.
example, I'll cover a chapter that says what questions to ask a brokerage and why you should ask those questions, so they can narrow down what's important to them about that company they're about to join up with.
Okay. So I have what this should say for you. So this is a little counterintuitive. Like we're gonna get into nuance, which is always great. Everything literally, everything I teach has like 50 caveats. Well, it depends for this person. Like there's always, I don't do anything cookie cutter. It's like every person gets their own like personalized. There's some guidelines and some pillars, but
Right.
for you, I would put mentor for new realtors
Mm-hmm.
because there isn't maybe new realtor would be something that what are people going to search? Like they don't really probably know that you exist. Like a lot of new realtors wouldn't necessarily search for someone who can help me be a realtor. Like that's not
Right.
a,
Right.
but you can there's another component of this. If you don't have a specific keyword, but at least you can immediately get people to recognize that you are their person for them, and this is like a hub for specific tools. So we assume that you're the founder because you are the one hosting it, so it's like we already know, so you can skip that and just do the line and say mentor for new realtors. And then you could, and then I don't know if you are specific to an area or if you
Nope.
just serve the entire.
Everywhere.
Exactly. So that's why I wouldn't necessarily pick, for someone serving the Seacoast, then they could put that in there because that could be a
Mm-hmm.
keyword. But for you,
Right.
you're really wanting to serve the globe. So even putting like worldwide, like if you wanted to just like really showcase the fact that you are serving the planet, and this is not like you could just say mentorship or mentor for new realtors. And you and we can connect about this after. I think you kind of get where we're going with this.
Oh, yeah. And I love it. It's a great example for anyone listening because, and that's part of why I asked you, besides looking at mine and feeling shocked, um, because I
Everybody
don't
does.
think we pay attention to what's on there. And so hearing it from your perspective, I thought, I just felt shocked. And so walking through the steps now, our listeners can get their device in front of them, open up Instagram, and see exactly what's there and start brainstorming what would work for them as replacement words. So thank you.
Absolutely. You are very welcome.
That's
I always
super
want to make sure that,
beneficial.
I want to make like sure that you get something really tangible and for your listeners. So hopefully that we have accomplished that now.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. What other tips do you have? Like, what would your top 3 be? That might be
Okay.
number 1, but I'm asking anyway.
Let me think here. For new realtors, I think, yeah, definitely that's number one. And then number two is to really be, and now I'm gonna speak about Instagram specifically because we're kind of hanging out there, and I think that could be really powerful, especially since I've been teaching about 7 workshops for realtors lately, and I've been kind of feeling the pulse of what's needed. So the second thing is to start getting comfortable with Canva. So Canva is a design tool that allows us to be very creative with our content in a way that's very cost effective and this could be also a hurdle for people because they feel a little intimidated by using new technology. But Canva is really a free tool. And even if you only used it for certain things to create like a brand look for yourself, maybe this is an area where you have to invest in having someone do this for you and with you a little bit, because if you can't figure it out, some people can go in there and kind of naturally figure it out, and that's cool. The people who don't, I don't want that to feel like a hindrance to them, because that's always going to be the case. We always
That
just
would
have,
be me.
yes. And did you, in fact, you have your brand colors, obviously, so you hired someone to help you with this, right? And this is part of what
I
you teach
did.
people. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So getting comfortable with
Omnitizing,
Canva.
actually.
Mhm. So one thing that I want to emphasize that can be really cool when we're talking about Canva is to create custom highlight covers. This is a really fun way to really establish your brand pretty quickly. And if you were to listen to this and you were like, I'm scared, but I want to do it, literally you go to YouTube and put how to create custom highlight covers in Canva, and there will be, and we can probably put that in the show notes. Would it be okay if I share a good one? I have a good one where people can.
100%. Yeah,
Okay, great.
absolutely.
So in the show notes, you're going to find just a simple YouTube video. It's not by me. It's just by someone that I follow, that I've found that I think would be really helpful for beginners. Because when you create highlights, so that's basically a collection of stories. So if this is kind of like Greek to you right now, don't worry, don't sweat it. You can let it go. But ultimately, what I like to help people understand is that you can, with pretty minimal effort, you can start creating content that will do a lot of heavy lifting for you. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that. So, right, if you have highlights, this is where it's going to be a little technical. So if you were to look at the feed here, and under the bio where there's a link, you would see some people have circles in different colors, and you can click on them and see multiple stories. Do you have that, Julie?
Not on Real AF, but let me go. I bet I know we had it on Rockstar Lux. Yep, we still have them.
Yeah, on Rockstar Lux, let's call it like, so one thing that could be really helpful is to create a testimonial highlight. So this is where if you were to commit to, let's say on Wednesdays, we're going back to our Wednesday schedule, where people are, let's say I post one post on my feed and I do one story. And let's say that the story was a testimonial from one of your clients or anyone you've worked with that have something positive to say about you. Now that post that you're putting out as a highlight will only be visible for 24 hours. But if you had a collection in a highlight, then you can create a collection of, let's say your goal was to get 10 testimonials in there over 10 weeks. And then when someone were to come to your feed, they'd be able to click on that and see multiple testimonials quickly in a succession, which would then trigger a response from them to say, oh, this is someone who has worked with multiple people and they have multiple good reviews. And that's someone that I feel I can trust and I can safely move forward with. So where the highlight cover comes into the picture is to make it a little more streamlined. So let's say that your blue was part of your color palette. So what you can do is simply go into Canva, generate a picture that has a blue, and maybe it has like a little bit of it has an icon of a heart on it. And then you call that highlight testimonials. That would be a really cool way to immediately, you can commit to doing it, let's say 5 or 10 times. And then you would have a design asset that would live there forever. So I think that using highlights is a really cool way to just quickly build that trust, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I have to say, go ahead.
Yes, go ahead. No, I want to hear from you, Julie. Go ahead, you first. I have a third thing, but I can wait.
I just am so happy you're here today. You have such a teacher's heart. And
Yes.
when people start out, they're very lost and they're overwhelmed. And you are breaking these topics down in such a way that they can grasp and learn. So I really appreciate you being here.
Oh, well, thank you so much. It was crazy because my first job that I ever got, I was working with autistic children, and it really just made me have to understand how to teach someone from a really basic level. And I actually started this when I was like 7 years old. I would do this in school. So this is like my passion. So I kind of started off telling you that that's my passion. So now you see it in action. I really honestly care. And I just know that these people who want to be realtors, like that's their passion. That's their gift. Their gift isn't making reels, and that's okay.
Yes,
But
you are so right.
but they can use these tools and get over them, find a way to get over the fear inside of themselves and say, you know what? It actually doesn't matter. And you know what? These things can be re-recorded and I can delete it whenever I want. Like, we need to really put that mindset back on when we were kids. Like, let me tell you how many things you've learned. You've learned how to crawl. You've learned how to walk. You fell down multiple times. But as a kid, you were like, got up, dusted yourself off. And as adults, we kind of get in our head about this stuff. We were talking about limiting beliefs. If people were to come to my Instagram, it's @_alignment marketing and then another underscore. So @_alignment marketing_ will be in the show notes. I recently, like yesterday, I put out a post about limiting beliefs because this is so prevalent. So I have a really good technique of like, how do we work with limiting beliefs? But one thing that we can do is we can find accountability partners. Let's say I bet you have a realtor friend who don't also want to do their social media, and you can be accountability buddies and meet on that Wednesday or whatever day you decide on, right?
Yeah.
So get support. My third little tip, again, with the idea of like, do the work once and set it and forget it, kind of. That's how I want to roll with in general. I'm like, set yourself up. The third thing is do yourself a favor and make sure your handle is set up with the keyword, make sure your name field is optimized, make sure your bio is organized. We'll not get into that today, how to do that, but really just take the little time and look at an example of someone you really think it does a good job and mimic what they do. That's totally fine. And the last little tip here is to use what's called pinned posts. Are you familiar with them, Julie?
I am not.
Okay, yes. This is so
There's
exciting.
A lot I'm not familiar with.
Yeah. What?
And It's okay.
Right. You've only just like started a podcast, have a team, wrote a book. I mean, you're not busy at all whatsoever. 3 kids. I mean, no, you're fine. You're just breezing through this. Yeah. So there's a new feature on Instagram, which is called a pinned post. And how you will find it is basically like, imagine you're looking at your feed and in the top left, there's a square and there's like 3 little dots in the corner, and it says like, it's basically where you edit it.
Right.
And in that, you touch the 3 little dots in the corner and it will give you a list of options like archive posts, delete posts, send, whatever. There's one that's called pin to grid or pin to profile. Okay. Mm-hmm. So when you do this, it basically always stays at the top. No matter what you post, you can pin up to 3 posts. So can you just imagine, Julie? Like, okay, you spent time. You're like, I'm really overwhelmed with social media, but I can commit to creating one post that has like a really cool headshot of me and that explains why I'm a realtor, why I do what I do, what I specialize in, what's cool about me. And again, if you're just starting out, you can share, like, you don't have to share, 20 years in the business, but there are things about you, your unique selling proposition, USP. There's things about you that stand out, and you can share your passion and what you do and how you work with people, and like maybe include a little testimonial at the end. And then you would give them a call to action, like set up a call, go to the link in my bio and get in touch with me. So then you pin that to the top. The second one was maybe the best testimonial that you ever got, like working with Julie, exceeded all my expectations. This was incredible. And you put that on like a little designed post. So the cover, like you said, is kind of beautifully designed. It has your brand colors. And then the third one is like the 5 biggest mistakes new for you would be like new realtors make, or, give a super good tip, like what every new home buyer needs to know. And you have those 3 pinned at the top. Then if you post pictures of your dog and what you're doing and like all that other stuff, you can share then. But now you have a professional profile that people can find because you put the SEO and it has your brand. It's all set up. And then you have freedom after that. So can you see how we're doing the work up front and really committing and just, you know what, I'm going to commit to knowing who I am, writing these posts. And it would be like literally 3 things: who you are and what you're about, best testimonials, or a little scrolling carousels with like 4 testimonials that were like really incredible. So people can quickly understand how great you are. And the third one, a good tip. Can you see how someone who were like looking to buy a house, their friends gave them 3 names. They looked those 3 names up on social media, and you are the one to have that on the top. Guess what? Odds are going to be higher that they're not going to reach out to you and want to work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I had no idea you could even do that on there.
I know. All these new features. I used to say, it used to be that you can do used to be called social media. Now it's have a PhD in social media.
For sure.
You need a PhD. I have it. I've done all the work for you. Don't worry.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for being here and sharing. And
My pleasure.
I want to put you on the spot. Will you please come back? I feel like you have so much more to share and teach our listeners.
I would be delighted to come back because, this is what I love to do. And you are just such a gracious host, and like your warmth and your care, it just like to me, as soon as I saw your face, I just knew that you're someone who leads with heart, and that's who I want to collaborate with and be in relationship with. So I would love to come back. And if you think it would be of help and benefit, then I would be honored.
I really do. And I appreciate your words very much. It's important to understand that the audience that we're speaking to, they've put a lot of effort in trying to pass that exam. And there's just so much adrenaline that leads up to that. And then you walk out with that pass, or, maybe it took 5 times, whatever. It's different for everyone. And then they're completely lost. How do I do the job? So you have covered such valuable information. I mean, I'm on Instagram every single day. I know nothing about it. I'm not the only one who doesn't know anything about it. And so the obstacles that new agents are faced with immediately, there's just so much to overcome. So the more we can really dive in and sort of deconstruct these items and make it easier for them to go down that path and put themselves in the best position. That's really what I want to do. So I'm very appreciative of everything you shared today. I'm glad Robin Baker introduced us. That's awesome.
Robin is a collaborative partner of mine, and I appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful too.
Yeah, I actually did a podcast with Robin recently, so our listeners will be familiar with her as well. Karna, live now, everyone. She is our go-to person. Can you go ahead and give them your contact information again, just so they know how to find you?
Well, absolutely. My website is, it's karnalivenow.com. And yes, that is my name. My first name is Liv, and I ended up marrying a guy with the last name Now. So that's KarnaLiv as in Victor, NAU.com. And hopefully that'll be in the show notes because it's a little bit hard to spell. And then my Instagram handle is _alignment marketing or _ again. So again, that's going to be in the show notes. And I'd love to be in touch with you. I'm realizing after working so closely with so many realtors, I want to develop some specific resources. So maybe that's something you can help me with, Julie. Specific resources for realtors around this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. We can definitely collaborate on that.
Great. I look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, me too. Thank you for being here. And listeners, thank you so much. Please text or email in your questions and we will have her on again. Thank you so much for listening. And please check us out on social media at Real AF Program. Till next time. Make sure you subscribe to our Spotify channel so you get updated every time we drop a new podcast. And check out our website at realafprogram.com.